Hello and welcome to the big picture. The last session of the 15th Lok Sabha has ended, and with it the worst performing Lok Sabha in the history of the post-independent Indian Parliament. Serious concerns are now being expressed about the Parliament becoming increasingly irrelevant. The 15th Lok Sabha will end up as one which passed the least number of legislations. Nearly 60% of the question time in both the houses were disrupted during this period. The 15th Lok Sabha met only for 335 days till end of 2013, including this session, it won't cross 350. On the other hand, the first three Lok Sabhas sat for an average of 600 days. The total time spent for debating legislation in this Lok Sabha saw a new low, with just 23% of the time spent on it, while the first Lok Sabha spent 49% of its time. Worse, 35% of the 162 bills passed in this Lok Sabha, lowest ever for a full 5-year term, was debated for just an hour or less. The average time spent on discussing the general budget in the last decade has come down to just 39 hours from 123 hours in the 1950s. Many other serious ailments are visible for all in the functioning of the Parliament. We have witnessed how the pepper spray incident took the Parliament to its lowest. All this have raised serious concerns about its future. Today we will discuss why it has come to such a pass and discuss how to ensure order and better functioning of the Parliament, at least when the 16th Lok Sabha comes into being. To discuss this, I have with me V. Kishore Chandra, Union Minister for Tribal Affairs in Panchayati, Saugata, Trinamool Congress MP in the Lok Sabha, Sitaram Yechury, leader of the CPIM in the Rajya Sabha, will be joining us on the soon. Sachidananda Murthy, resident editor of the Week magazine, and Anil Nair of the PRS Legislative Service. Welcome to all of you. So, Mr. Sitaram, let me come to you first.
Yes.
You think that that the credibility of the Parliament as a whole is at its lowest ever after what we have witnessed in this last 5 years, and especially in the last last 2-3 sessions of the Parliament?
Unfortunately, we'll have to come to that conclusion given the statistics that you have just placed before the country.
Right.
And it is necessary for us to introspect to see why this has been happening. Because this is important, because unless we come to that conclusion, we cannot really correct it, which I think is absolutely essential for the future of Indian democracy.
Right.
Because functioning of the Parliament, if you bear with me for a minute, I want to just say, is very, very critical for our constitutional scheme of things to function.
Right.
Because the sovereignty of the people is exercised through their elected members in the Parliament. And if that elected members do not discharge their duties, then the sovereignty itself gets affected and the executive is not held accountable. And if the executive is not accountable to the Parliament, then MPs are not accountable to the people. The entire sovereignty of the people breaks down.
Right.
So it's very important that we correct this.
Okay. Please stay online, Sitaram. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Let me go to Saugata Roy. Mr. Roy? Mr. Roy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Roy?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes. The issue is about the complete lack of discipline which has been the regular feature in both houses of the Parliament in this last in this 15th Lok Sabha, which was there in the Rajya Sabha also was slightly better, we could say, but some of the scenes which we have witnessed, some of the utter lack of discipline which we have witnessed in both houses. Do you think that, my question is, how far do you think the individual members are responsible for this? And we will come to the part played by the political parties on this.
No, there are two aspects about the 15th Lok Sabha which I noticed.
Right.
One aspect is that this 15th Lok Sabha passed the most serious legislations. It passed the food security bill, it passed the land distribution, land acquisition and resettlement bill.
Right.
It passed the very serious amendments to the criminal
Procedure code.
laws
Yes.
in protecting women. It passed the street vendors. It passed the street vendors bill. It passed the manual scavengers bill.
Right.
And it passed the Telangana bill, even though we opposed it.
Right.
On the other hand,
Right.
large number of days were lost due to disruption. And for this, I'll principally blame the ruling party.
Right.
You see, in the current session, which just ended today,
Right.
most of the disturbance was created by members of Congress party who were against the decision to divide Andhra.
Right.
If the Congress wanted to take steps against them, they should have done it earlier. They should not have let Parliament be disrupted. In the end, they woke up to the situation, suspended the members, expelled them from the party, then passed the Telangana bill. They could have done it 10 days ago. And session after session, say for instance, regarding the JPC on 2G scam.
Right.
Days together, opposition was disrupting Parliament, demanding this. Ultimately,
one
the
whole
government
session was
agreed to appointment of a joint parliamentary committee. Why did they not? One whole session. So I think both the floor management and the coordination of the ruling party was lacking in this matter. In some cases, various opposition parties disrupted. I remember last session, the Tamil parties, they disrupted Parliament for days together on the issue of torture of Tamils in Sri Lanka.
Right.
Now, when people do this, the government has to take the initiative through the speaker to resolve, but that effort was not done.
Okay.
My impression was that the government did not want too much discussion, and in recently, I saw that when some Congress members had given a no confidence motion against the government, some parties were instigated by those in the government to create disruption so that they didn't have to face the embarrassment.
Mr. Roy.
It's a bad parliament.
No, Mr. Roy.
And I know the general culture has also gone down. Just in 1 second, I'll finish. Huh?
Okay.
Yes?
Okay.
No, I just want to say one thing. I was in the 6th Lok Sabha.
Right.
Even at that time, the question hour was held sacrosanct.
Absolutely.
Trouble started only after the question hour.
Right.
Now it is, this session, only one day question hour has been held. That is most unfortunate because question hour is the time when members can extract maximum information from the government.
In fact,
disruption takes place.
In fact,
unless all the parties get.
In fact, Mr. Roy,
get together.
I'll come back. No, I agree with you. In fact, you were talking about the disruption of question hour in Lok Sabha. It was held only one day. In Rajya Sabha during the winter session, the first half of the winter session and this half which ended today, not a single day question hour was held in Rajya Sabha. That is the unfortunate state of affairs. Let me come to Mr. Kishore Chandra.
Abbas was held only today.
Yes,
only
today.
First day
Absolutely.
It was held.
Mr. Kishore Chandra, coming to you, the normal discourse which happens when we discuss about the state of parliament in this country is the opposition parties will blame the government for the lack of floor management or seriousness or whatever it is, and there are any number of instances for them to say this. But is this problem which we are witnessing much more than just floor management, or do you think that it is that the government will need to take blame? You are part of the government. You have seen, as Mr. Saugata Roy said, that he was in the 6th Lok Sabha. You are also in the 6th Lok Sabha. So can you give us a perspective on what this problem is?
You see, first of all, I'd like to mention that as far as Parliament is concerned, if parliamentary democracy has to continue, I think both the ruling party and the opposition will have to play the role in a restrictive and constructive manner. I don't think a blame game will take us any further or help resolve this particular issue. See, as Saugata Roy had himself said, there were a lot of contradictions in the 15th Lok Sabha.
Right.
There were a lot of disruptions, unseemly events had taken place, but then a lot of path-breaking legislations, long-pending legislations also happened during this last 5 years. So you see, this is not a question of blaming one another. You see, when opposition leaders say, you bring the house to order and then we'll cooperate, and don't agree when the speaker wants to suspend a member,
right?
Then what do you do? What does the ruling party have to do? So you see, I mean, but I don't want to get into that argument. Or I don't want to indulge in a blame game, because that's not going to help to sort of restore the dignity of Parliament or decorum in the House.
Right. Okay. Sitaram, one issue is, both.
Yeah. Yes.
That we have got into this blame game too often. The opposition blaming the government blaming the opposition. Where do we stop? How do we stop at this? And also, you see, in the last few days that we have witnessed in both houses, members walking into the well repeatedly, and the worst instance of what we saw in the Lok Sabha last week, where a member was using this pepper spray and other things, and another member was supposed to have been carrying some dangerous weapons and things like that. So, don't you think that all the political parties should now end the blame game and put their heads together? I don't see that happening at all.
You see, the unfortunate part is that it's not merely a blame game. In any process, the leadership has to be given by those who control the reins of government. Now it's a government that will have to take the initiative. The opposition is equally responsible for order in the House. There's no doubt about it. But you take the instances that we've had. For instance, in the second part of this winter session that ended today, before the session began, there was an all-party meeting where I remember myself articulating, many other leaders also joined in that, saying that unless the ruling party or the ruling coalition manages to get their house in order on this issue of Telangana division, then this house, that is the House of Parliament, cannot function. No, that was as clear as daylight.
Sitaram, 1 second.
Even before this session began.
No, Sitaram, sorry. No, Sitaram, I have a specific question. I want, in fact, this is a question which all three of you needs to answer. Before I go to Sachidananda Murthy, does it mean that the leadership of all political parties, it's not just the government. We have seen the Trinamool Congress in the Raj Sabha yesterday, completely trying to disrupt the house, indulging in very, what can only be described as very, very unfortunate behavior. And it has happened. Your party members walked into the well of the house, which you don't do in the Lok Sabha. So, is this a sign of the leadership of all political parties having become very weak in the face of what the members are demanding?
No, it depends on the provocation, Girish. No, that is the point that I'm trying to make. You see, the leadership's role comes in trying to avoid such situations of provocation, in the House. Now, for that, a certain degree of homework is required, and that is what needs to be done, and all of us have to learn from this. All of us have to learn from this, and we have made a suggestion. I have personally made it, not now, more than 5 years ago, that we shift the question hour timing by 1 hour, so that let the first 1 hour be declared as a grievance hour, let's say. So let everybody come and vent their issues. There are innumerable issues of public importance. People are eager to raise them, and very rightly so. So let that be raised in the first 1 hour with the permission of the chair. Let there be rules for that. And then you have the question hour from 11 to 12. No, but you see, some method has to be found.
Sitaram,
method has to be found in order to ensure that such things don't continuously repeat.
No, Sitaram,
I hold everybody responsible.
No, Sitaram, you are well aware when the chairman of the Rajya Sabha tried to shift the question hour to post-lunch session, it did not work out. The members were not ready to cooperate. It went on for a week or so, and then everybody was back.
Well, I agree. I agree with what you said, but I am prepared, I was prepared then, I am prepared now, to that we should all reconsider, all leaders of the opposition parties have to reconsider as well, that by shifting it by 1 hour, and not like it was shifted to post-lunch, on the earlier occasion that you mentioned, but by shifting it by 1 hour, we should all actually agree to that. That's my appeal. But I mean, like you said, the responsibility lies with both the government and the opposition party leaders, that will have to come to some working arrangement. This cannot continue like this.
Absolutely. Sachi, my question to you is, you have been a witness to the functioning, the working of the parliament for more than 2 decades here. You think that the question which I asked Sitaram, which I am going to ask the other 2 MPs on the panel also, Minister and the MP, has the authority of the leaders of political parties, regardless of whether they are in the government or in the opposition, has it been eroding, and has it eroded to such an extent that they are not able to control their members?
Yeah, but Girish, you have to look at the fractured nature of the parliament. Earlier, the leader of the house can talk to the leader of the opposition. There are only 2 major blocks. But now look at this parliament. Mr. Yechury does not talk to Mr. Jaitley. Mr. Saugata will not talk to the CPM leader there. Mulayam Singh Yadav will not talk to the BSP leader. So the very nature of parliament has changed over the last 2 decades. And we have more and more parties, and all of them are not opposition parties. Some are fully supporting, some are not fully supporting. Each has its own. So there is no single focus in the house. So the government tries to sometimes deal with all of them. Sometimes the government will use them, like what the members were saying, that the government will use other party members to provoke those who are in the middle. So I think the nature of parliament itself has changed over the last 2 decades. I think the last time we could see was in the early 90s, when Mr. Narasimha Rao could talk to Mr. Vajpayee. Both of them could work out how to deal with the house.
Right.
So I think, and each party comes with a different agenda. I think the speaker and the government should allow them to raise those issues. I mean, if DMK has one issue, on the same day BSP has some other issue. How do you reconcile those things? But I think the parliament itself has become very complex. It is no more the parliament of the 60s, 70s and 80s.
Okay. Mr. Kishore Chandra, Mr. Saugata, would you like to respond first?
No,
yes.
Yeah, I would like to respond to Mr. Murthy. He is not factually correct. If you remember the parliament from 52 to 77,
right,
it was a one-party dominant system.
Right.
In fact, till 1977, there was no officially recognized opposition party because nobody had a 10% number of seats in the Lok Sabha.
Right.
Also, you must remember at that time, there was Swatantra and Jansan on the right.
Right.
There was socialist and communist divided into 2. But house could be run. Jawaharlal Nehru was successful because he spent a lot of time in the house.
Right.
He used to encourage new members like, say, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Professor Hiren Mukherjee were most encouraged by Nehru. The attitude of the rulers towards the opposition parties must change. I think that lot can be achieved by personal relationship. Unfortunately, there are no leaders like Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru now. There are no leaders like Hiren Mukherjee or Madhu Limaye
in the opposition
or Najpai in the parliament now.
In the opposition benches also.
General deterioration of
standards. Okay, yes, Mr. Kishore Chandra Dev. Is it Sitaram says, and Mr. Saugata Roy says that general deterioration in standards, lack of leadership at the top level. You think this is where the problem lies?
You see, it's not lack of leadership. I would say that leadership is there, but you see, I think the ethos of your political culture itself has undergone a drastic change now. And you see, as Sachi says, that there are too many parties. It's become complex. But ours is a complex society, and in a complex society, there will be complexities as far as representation in parliament is concerned. This is the realistic sort of factor of our Indian polity. So I don't think it's that. What you need is the will to recognize the sanctity of Parliament, to ensure that it runs. As Sitaram Yechury rightly said, it is the responsibility of both the opposition and ruling party, and certainly the ruling party has got the responsibility to initiate moves.
Okay.
But you see, due to several other issues which have arisen, which have come at cross purposes, there have been confusion in the House at times, and that's
very unfortunate. Not just confusion, sir. There has been chaos. There has been anarchy virtually, which in the House. Let me get Anil Nair, Anil Nair of the PRS. Yes, Anil Nair. You know, how do you view this? Do you think that you also look at the states, you also look at the Parliament. You think that we have reached the nadir as far as performance is concerned?
Yeah, so if you look at data, like you mentioned at the beginning, this the 15th Lok Sabha has the infamous distinction of being the worst since beginning of Lok Sabha. And one of the challenges we believe is how the institution of Parliament is viewed by the members.
Right.
If it is viewed as an institution to push the government's agenda,
right,
there will be limited ownership by the honorable members.
Right.
So we could, there is a need to relook at how the mechanism of Parliament, how it functions currently. So we could take tips from some certain other advanced democracies.
Yes.
For example, in UK and Australia, they publish a calendar for the annual calendar for the whole year, by which a proper schedule is available for all members, and they can make plans accordingly. In UK, in addition, certain days are reserved for members of the opposition to conduct the business which they think important.
Right.
So this would help in having greater ownership of the institution by the members. And currently, we believe that the Parliament is probably been seen as a vehicle for pushing the government's agenda, which is actually not as it was envisaged by the Constitution. And the point, in fact, the Deputy Chairman in the Rajya Sabha made today, specifically that by disrupting the question hour, the members are actually helping the ministers not perform their functions. Because that's an opportunity for the members to hold the ministers accountable.
Oh, absolutely. I think you made a couple of important points there. Mr. Kishore Chandra Dev, ownership. Do the members have the ownership? Has it just become government trying to push its own agenda most of the time, so that the individual members, the members of the opposition, members of small political parties don't feel the ownership of the House in which they function?
You see, I don't exactly understand what you're trying to say, because after all, when you're in a political party, you just do what your decision was. The political party is your decision. See, one thing we all must remember is, or we must understand that, you see, parliamentary democracy is a game of numbers.
Right.
Now, in a system of parliamentary democracies, you see, the minorities must have their say. But it's always that the majorities have their, when you have
the government has to
have your say.
The government has its way, the opposition has its say.
Let me complete.
Okay.
You see, but the most disrupting aspect is, if when minorities feel that they can obstruct the government's way by storming into the well, by obstructing proceedings, that's when the problem begins.
Okay,
this is something I think which all of us must realize.
Mr. Saugata, do you agree that when the opposition becomes obstructive,
yes.
Opposition has become obstructive. The opposition seems to spend more time in the well, than in their seats. How do you expect the government to function when the opposition becomes so obstructive, unwilling to discuss, debate, or have any kind of arrangement?
In fact, I have a feeling.
Yes.
In fact, I have a feeling that the government is quite happy when the opposition is obstructive. For instance, in this House, the railway budget and the general budget were both passed without any debate.
Yes.
The ministers must have felt very relieved that they didn't have to
this has been
hear
happening.
any criticism.
Absolutely. No, no, but so don't you think that, sir, 1 second.
Please listen to me.
No, no, 1 second, please, I have a question. So, is it not the, is the onus not on the opposition parties to ensure that the house functions and then put the government on the mat? You are saying that the government is quite happy, the opposition is quite happy disturbing, the government is quite happy not having any functions, any proceedings in the house. So that's what some people say, it's match fixing. Like today, Sitaram Yechury said in the Rajya Sabha.
No, I have a comment on that.
Yes.
I have a comment on that to say that people do what they think will give them mileage. If they think that making good speeches will give them mileage, they'll do that. If they feel that by disrupting the house, they'll get more mileage, they'll do that. Ultimately, it also becomes the responsibility of the media and an educated public opinion and a prepared public opinion to decide on what to do.
Okay.
In fact, in England they say
sir,
that the person who wins the most times is the person who has been deaf and dumb in parliament, who have not spoken at all.
Okay.
So there are many factors which come into play, but
Absolutely.
all I want to say
Yes.
that the government will push through its agenda. The job of the opposition is to oppose and if possible depose the government.
Okay.
And for that they have to take recourse to all parliamentary strategy.
Sitaram, you know, we are running out of time. I have a very important issue for which, you know, I want a quick comment from you. Immunity which is being given to the MPs. Don't you think that it has been misused, abused, and misused and abused like nobody's business, and there needs to be a relook at this whole issue of immunity of members, the behavior inside the house?
Absolutely. I mean, I am the first one to have agreed to some suggestions which came earlier, and I would completely endorse such a thing. Let us discuss it all, have everybody on board, but some degree of restrictions will have to be ensured, particularly after what we have seen when we saw with the pepper spray in the Lok Sabha.
Right.
I mean, if MPs will also be checked when they enter the house, then so be it. So, I'm not against it at all, and I don't see why it's made into a prestige issue by some people, but that is something absolutely ridiculous.
Okay.
And I think if a common person in the country is going through a security drill, we should also be.
Mr. Kishore Chandra Dev, do you agree with that? Do you think that the actions of the MPs inside the house, when it goes beyond their, what they say, and now it becomes what they do, the kind of physical, attacks which they indulge in, should they have immunity for such kind of things?
No, not at all. Not at all. I fully agree with Yechury that there should be restrictions as far as that is concerned. And not only that, you see, I would be happy with that. Stringent action must be taken against those who behave in this manner. Like what the pepper spray was just deplorable.
Do you
and
think
what
that
happened in the Rajya Sabha yesterday was no better?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Roy. Mr. Roy, would you agree with that quickly?
No, but I do not agree with either Mr. Yechury or Mr. Deo in that the MPs enjoy no immunity. MPs are not immune from legal action outside Parliament. We have known of several MPs.
No, I am not talking of legal outside Parliament. I am talking of inside the Parliament, the behavior of the members inside the Parliament.
If you talk of inside Parliament, the Speaker, please listen to me. Inside the Parliament, the Speaker and the Parliament itself have the power to take action.
Okay.
MPs have been jailed. Indira Gandhi, you remember, was debarred from Parliament and
that
jailed.
was not for her behavior inside the house, sir. It was not for her behavior inside the house.
Yeah, exactly.
It was not for behavior inside the house. Sachi, very quick. Sachi, do you see the MPs? Do you see the MPs, the members, political parties coming together to ensure better order in the house? Do you see that happening in the 16th, at least in the 16th Lok Sabha?
No, Girish, I doubt it, because we have had all the MPs, leaders sitting together in 1997 passing a resolution that we shall not disturb parliament, and if anybody disrupts, action will be taken. So I don't think, because each political party uses disruption as a weapon. Maybe using pepper spray is an extreme one, but otherwise disruption is a way of life for all political. The Congress has done it, other parties. I don't think they will come together on this.
Okay, on that note, I think we are completely run out of time. We need to end, but this is a debate.
No, but remember, except for the last occasion, Girish, there was never once did the CPM ever enter the well, either in the Rajya Sabha, in the Lok Sabha, or the Rajya Sabha, except for the last occasion.
Except for the last, you people also seem to have, unfortunately, you people also seem to have succumbed to the temptation of going into the well, but we hope that will be the last time.
No, that is what I meant when I said the provocation.
That. No, but you know,
we
have come to the end of the show, but the fact is that as Sachi's pessimism is disturbing, but he has a point there when he says that, but we hope that at least when the 16th Lok Sabha meets, and at least the next 5 years, we will see better performance, members behaving in a more responsible manner, and hopefully the credibility of the parliament, which is getting fast eroded, will be restored. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Sitaram, Yechury, Kishore Chandra, Saugata, Sachidananda, Murthy and Anil, Nair. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, Big Picture, same time on Monday. Meanwhile, have a great weekend.